What Georgia background?
Hey, everybody. We are live. There was no show graphics, so it just was the regular YouTube background.
Fair enough. Fair enough. How's everyone doing tonight?
If you're talking to me,
all right, people.
We'll let it build up a little bit, and then we'll get started. We got a guest coming at 8:45.
This is a big guest for us because this is one of my good friends I've been trying to get on here for quite some time, who always seems to find a way to not show up.
You talking about Steven Garcia again?
No, I would never invite him back on.
You're gonna be able to send him the link?
Yep.
All right, cool. All right, let's get started here in a second. Maybe wait for some more people to show up.
It's just me and it's just four of us right now. It's no good. We got Riley here. This will be fun. We got a big show. Bama preview. Should we talk about what else is going on in the world?
Like just anything?
Not Ukraine. We don't do well with the Ukraine talk.
It's fair. I want to put out some bets for week 0.
We can do that after the interview, though.
Been looking into it.
What up, Coda? Yeah, I got 2. That's all I'm gonna go with. I think pretty standard bets. I did see Nebraska and Northwestern are kicking off the season in Ireland. Just 50 Shades of White, headed over to Ireland, and pretty pumped about that. But I did see something the other day where, so if you're in Ireland, you know this, if you're in Ireland and you're a new driver, if you're like getting your driver's license, they make you put a red in the back of your car. So it's just like novice, like a new driver.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like just like a Nebraska in. So like Nebraska fans have been like, dude, we already took over this whole fucking country, bro.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Riley, I like that pick. Maybe previewing. Let's just get into it.
Let's get into it. I was going to say we do it after, but we can do it now. There's other news to talk about.
Well, I mean, I was just going to get into like starting the pod.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Ready? Mm-hmm. Everybody ready? Get fired up. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the College Football Uncensored podcast, brought to you by Saturday Down South. I'm your host, Tyler Huck, and with me, as always, resident Bama extraordinaire.
Oh,
Chris Marler.
That's right.
What's going on, man? It's a big week.
Dude, it's the first week of college football. I feel like a whole person again.
Football starts. We wake up Saturday morning, and we are just hours away from a game.
Yeah,
in another country, but a game nonetheless.
Here's my thing about us trying to spread college football to another country. Of all the things we've ever tried to spread to another country, democracy. Still doing the show.
Ooh, tough.
Yeah, democracy or any of those things. I think college football is probably the best one that we could spread. Democracy didn't go well, but I do want to say this. This is just a bad lead-in to what I really do want to talk about, which is Ben Coulter bringing up South Carolina's new mascot names, Decocracy.
Okay.
So South Carolina they're changing the name of their time for Ned. They're changing the name of their I guess like their mascot? Actual but not like cocky, not like the mascot, but like the actual real live like rooster.
Okay.
And they're changing the name here. So it's a vote. But I guess
fans are voting on this?
Yeah, they're allowed to vote on it. So right now, like the clear leader is Cock Commander, but Cluck Norris was an option. Yeah.
For real?
Cluck Norris is. Yeah, that thing's fucking terrifying.
Okay, so so right now, of course, 69% Cock Commander.
Cluck Norris?
Coop? I feel like you're just kind of being lazy when you do that. Coop.
What? Cluck Norris?
No, Cluck Norris is awesome. Mother Clucker?
Cocky
McCockface? What are these?
Cocky McCockface.
Why are they changing the name of the mascot? Do we know?
I think it was too inappropriate.
Big or Sir Big Spur was the name, I guess.
Yeah.
That's inappropriate, I guess, because maybe it
sounds bad as this.
phallic.
Yeah.
And we're talking about Cocky McCockface as something
Cocky
different than that.
McCockface is so much.
Swole. Okay, what's going on here?
What was the next one?
You can see it right there on the screen.
Big Toe Joe Cockavan. Pronounced like Cockavan?
Look at the third one down.
Which one?
The third one down. That can't be real.
Swole cock.
Okay.
Man.
Oh, Booza in the chat. Look at
Fuck
this.
Norris.
2 fingers of Woodford and ready for the preview.
I read that as Pew Pew.
Oh.
Optimus Prime?
Love that.
That's so good. You know what? How about this? How about we'll give away a sticker tonight to the best what do you call it? South Carolina what do you call it? Mascot name. Yeah. I mean, Optimus Prime is tough to beat.
I do like Optimus Prime. So basically, we're just making cock jokes at this point. So
yeah, well,
find something that goes well with that.
The whole thing. I mean, you remember like you're in middle school and high school, and there's always like one dude named Brendan who had a Cox hat. It's like, dude, you get it, bro? You get it?
For sure.
What was the other one? Morehead State.
Yes. What was it? There was one of those the camels.
I don't remember that. Beavers, Oregon State. Like for a while there, Morehead, Oregon State, and then in South Carolina, they had like the best. I think I had a Morehead State hat before I had ever gotten head in my life. I probably shouldn't say that. I don't know. I was like fucking like 13 or 12, and I was like, dude, you guys get it, dude? I was watching MTV Jams on MTV Spring Break, and someone had this hat on. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm going to Lids. I'm getting the hat.
I got a unique fact about myself when it comes to MTV.
Oh, God.
When I was 14 years old, 15, 14, I was down in the Keys with my family.
Okay.
And a area talent scout came up to me, approached me, and said, hey, we're filming. Remember they used to do the TRL end of summer countdown?
Yeah, it was the best.
Yeah. So I was sat on the beach for like 12 hours in the crowd and was a part of like a TRL end of summer countdown. You remember there was like people like lounging the beach, like, sup, when they go back to Carson Daly? I was on that.
In the Keys.
And I got to make a video. Remember when you can make the videos where they pop up with the videos?
Yeah.
Hey, my name's Tyler. I'm from Atlanta. I'll request Blink 182, The Rock Show.
Man. But this, hold on. Okay, this is...
They're like 24-year-olds right now have absolutely zero idea what we're talking about.
But hold on, this is Cocky Balboa's good. Hold on, so this is when you were in 8th grade, huh? We're losing followers right away.
I was going into my sophomore year of high school.
Okay. Because I feel like going into freshman year was like a landmark year for music. You had LFO come out.
Right. Who could forget?
Did you watch Woodstock 99, the documentary yet?
Oh, yeah.
What did you think about that?
That was interesting. Especially the part where they had who's the DJ?
The DJ
that played that, like there was a dude that stole an ambulance.
Dude,
that was so fun. I mean, that was crazy. Bad. Yeah, and then I just finished the Manti Te'o thing last night.
I've watched that like 3 times.
Did you feel bad for him or no?
So here's the thing. Okay, I do want to talk about this because I felt bad for the fact that it's like, man, like this person went so far beyond like oh my god, like she could have just broken things off with him, but she was like, oh my god, I got into a car wreck. Like think about how long she had to do the
when he started like doing that, and like I was like, this person, then a male, now a female, is one of the most fucked up people I've ever seen in my like. And what made it so screwed up was the fact that when they would interview her, she was like, she like wanted people to feel bad for her.
Okay, you know, so here's the takeaways I have from the Manti Te'o thing.
I'm like,
here's a ranking of the most fucked up parts of that movie or that entire show. One, she made up that she got into a car wreck, right? And then did the breathing thing for a full. Can you imagine how committed to being crazy you have to be to do that for a full fucking month of just like he's like porn stars like I mean, if I'm him, at some point I'm not like, hey Lene, I'm praying for you. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna put you over here. I'm going back to playing video games. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, for a while that had to just be dead air. Then she made up, as she got into a car wreck, she made up she had leukemia.
Not cool.
Bold move. But also what was fucked up was that then she started like weirdly taking credit for his success. And she was like, I was like telling him, like, you got to read your keys and you got to make sure, like, go with the flow of like the defense, and you got to read what the offense is doing. And it was like,
that should have been the first sign.
Yeah.
Like, this girl feels like she's played like high school quarterback, which the dude had.
Yeah.
How about the weird? I didn't remember this from the story. The weird Dr. Phil like showing where he like put her behind a wall.
When Dr. Phil came on,
she said she couldn't perform it. She had to be in a dark room. Remember this when she was like, I had to put myself in, and then so they just put a wall in front of her, and then she started to.
I don't care how this sounds. This is gonna come off as bad, but I mean it. That person's transition wasn't anywhere close to being as awkward as the transitions in that documentary. Like, like they'd be like, hey, like, and then he had an interception against Michigan State and they won the game. And then it's like, and then like they do in any documentary, it's like, and it just says like Dr. Phil. And it's like, why is Dr. Phil sitting down? It's always in some fucking abandoned warehouse. It's always in an abandoned warehouse, and there's one chair, and then it's like, "What's up, guys? I'm Dr. Phil." I haven't told you my Dr. Phil story.
No, I don't know the Dr. Phil story. But yeah, that was an interesting documentary. Yeah. I felt bad for him at the end when he was like clearly emotional. And he was like, "Yeah, people have been making fun of me basically for the last decade." It's like, yeah, that kind of sucks.
I did feel bad for him on that. Like that part sucked because it's like. In the end, it was like super emotional. I felt like, because to know what he had to go through like that is, I mean, somebody did a whole.
I made a lot of Manti Te'o jokes. I'll admit it. Hand up.
Oh, me too. Somebody did a whole bobblehead night for him.
With like a fake like arm around something, or like with a ghost or something.
No, it was just an empty box.
Poor guy.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, and then obviously the Woodstock one was crazy too. That scene where, first of all, they were trying to mimic Woodstock and they booked Korn and Limp Bizkit.
That part for me was like,
I got claustrophobic watching that Korn when they came into that song, and the crowd just went insane. And I was like, can you imagine that like post pandemic being that close to people like that?
What's the biggest concert you've been to?
I'd say like the one where I felt most like packed in was I went to Mumford and Sons in Centennial Park, and I was with some people that got legit claustrophobic and had to like leave the crowd.
Really?
I've been to some big ones at Centennial.
I went to Outkast at Centennial.
Dave Matthews. Muse. Remember the band Muse? Do you remember when we had the Final Four and they had all those free concerts down there?
Yeah, me and Booty got kicked out. The guy we was just do the live event with, which we are postponing, by the way. But me and Booty got kicked out within like 12 minutes of going down there.
Yeah, those were fun though. That's where I saw half these.
We had I saw Dave Matthews at Hangout Fest, and I'll just never forget being what's the best way to put it? High and watching Dave Matthews and like there he is. And they had this guy got hit with something. He got hit with something in the back, and he was so fucking mad, and he was like trying to fight somebody at a Dave Matthews concert. I was like, how are you this mad at a Dave Matthews concert?
I've never seen anyone mad at a Dave Matthews concert.
The Lamaconda.
What's up, fellas?
What's up, dude?
What are y'all doing?
We are okay. So let's just get into this. We're joined now. We're doing the Bama preview show with one of our most difficult guests we've ever been able to book on here. It's Clint Lamb from On3. Clint, introduce yourself, man.
I would argue with you, but You're 100% correct. How long have we been planning this, man?
2 to 3 years, I think. Yeah.
I was able to avoid you I had a good run. I'll put it that way.
You were able to do it at media days in person, which was tough to do.
I dipped out on a lot of people at media days. The problem is like you get hit up and it's like there's so many people.
Yeah.
And then you're like, man, I'm not even going to answer this text because like I'm so swamped. And then you turn a corner and like there they are, and you're like, hey, yeah.
Well, luckily I forgot my credentials on day 4, so I mean,
I wasn't even there on day 4. I got out of there. I was like, I really think Chris is probably going to try to find me and get me onto his podcast, and I need to get out of here. I need to dip quick.
What was the last night we were there together? Was it because we went out drinking one night, and it was tough. When I tell you the most awkward night, like, I mean,
I just know that you had that random lady that was very rude to you, and then decided that you were the rude one. It took a turn quick.
She was a female. She was not a lady. I will say that right now. She had like, Tyler, have you ever seen Heavyweights, the movie Heavyweights?
Of course. The
dance scene in Heavyweights is exactly what was happening. Me, Clint, and Chris Gordy were just hanging out, and then like somebody came over. Like the whole place smelled like a fart. Like and it wasn't us. I swear to God, the whole place.
I had my questions about Chris, but I know that it wasn't the other two. You know,
it was so bad. And then somebody was like, "Hey, do you want these nachos? We have some extra nachos if you want them."
Very sauce, but we took nachos.
And yeah, I dug right in. But then like once we had the nachos, and then it smelled like a fart, and everybody kept drifting further away from us. It was pretty bad. Anyway, Clint, let's get started with a question that I haven't asked in a long time. Where are you from? What you drinking over here?
It probably looks like I'm drinking, even though I'm not. Sipping on some Mio, some fruit punch Mio that I don't even really like, if I'm speaking candidly. It's not really my favorite flavor. Tried it out one time, didn't like it, and then I ran out of my good stuff. The strawberry watermelon. Peach tea was the best, but of course they had to discontinue that.
Right, because it brought happiness.
Yeah, so strawberry watermelon was the second best. Ran out of that. So right before the show, I'm like, what do we got? And I'm sipping on fruit punch, literally. Not feeling good about it, but you know.
That's good. Well, we're going to talk some Bama football, which I hope you're feeling better about than I am, because I have gone into my annual dark sadness mode of worrying and expecting the worst. I'm in full pessimism. All right. So first and foremost, Bama goes what, 13-2 last year. They get to the national championship game. Now let's just set the fucking tone right now, Clint, because I think I know the answer to this, and you do too. Was last year a rebuilding year, or was it not a rebuilding year?
Yes, it was a rebuilding year. It's relative, right? I mean, would that have been a rebuilding year for 95% of college football? No, but for Alabama and what they've come to expect, and how they run the program, right? You had a ton of turnover. You got a first round, quarterback, first round running back, couple of first round receivers,
Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah, 2 first round offensive linemen. Or at least, one first round offensive lineman, and then a guy who would have been a first round pick in Landon Dickerson had it not been for the torn ACL.
Right.
Still went, number 37 overall. So, yeah, I mean, you also had an offensive coordinator, arguably your best offensive coordinator in school history. He leaves. A lot of turnover, and then of course, you kind of build you build your offense around certain guys, and then you lose those guys right when everything really started to matter. I would consider that a rebuilding year. I can understand based off of the general definition of rebuild that people would get upset with that. But I mean, from Nick Saban's perspective, and we also got to realize too, the comment wasn't made as that being the point. It was very quickly kind of ran through, and I don't even think he meant anything by it.
Right.
It's the way that he viewed it, and just in his response to whatever question was being asked, he said, last year was a rebuilding year. Everybody grabbed that sound bite and then they ran with it, which I don't think he was very happy about, by the way. We talked to him a few days later, and we all caught the brunt end of that one. But yeah, I would say it was a rebuilding year.
Okay. So we're looking at the season. Vegas has the win total set at 10.5. And I think 11 wins it would be good. I'm not sold on the offensive line still. Talk me out of that for one, but coming out of spring, also tell us what are the what is the biggest pros and cons to getting over that number this year from a team standpoint? What is the strength and what is the weakness of the team?
I think obviously strength is your exterior pass rush. I don't know that I've ever seen a collection of pass rushers in college football that is this impressive. And what's crazy is that I think it's starting to extend a little bit beyond the big three that we've been talking about with Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, and Chris Braswell. We've been hearing some good things about Keanu Coate, who was a 5-star prospect according to On3, was a top 40 player in the On3 consensus. And then, Quandarius Robinson, who's another former top 75 guy. I've been hearing really good things about him. He had a fantastic scrimmage this past Saturday, had multiple sacks, multiple plays in the backfield. So, I think that they're actually starting to fill out that depth a little bit more with guys that they can trust. Now, there's some other positions, obviously, that, they do have depth, but it's a matter of establishing that depth. They have options as far as talent, but Nick Saban's talked about how some of those young guys really need to start stepping up. Talent won't be an issue, but just guys who can do things consistently to the standard that Alabama needs them to. That's an area where they're trying to get more guys who can do that. The biggest weaknesses, you talked about the offensive line. I'm not nearly as concerned about it as you. I really believe in Eric Wolford, and I've heard really good things. I mean, really across the board. Tyler Steen has done a great job of kind of taking hold at left tackle. The center battle is ongoing, kind of leaning towards Darian Dalcourt right now, or at least it's looking that way. Emil Ekiyor Jr. went from 324 pounds all the way down to 307. From people that I've talked to, has kind of taken that next step. And a lot of people are expecting an elite, caliber season out of him heading into year 5. And then you also got J.C. Latham, who I think is taking a big step forward as well there at right tackle. And last year, you look and you say there was one place where you could consistently get consistent pressure on Bryce Young, and that was coming off the right side of Alabama's offensive line. And, when you look at the group, there's nobody in particular that you can point to and say that's where we're going to get consistent pressure. And I think from that standpoint, it's a little bit, different in the approach that defenses are going to have to take. I feel really good about the offensive line, but it is a question mark. And then obviously you got question marks at receiver and corner as well. Receiver, I think, is moving in the right direction. Corner, I think they got plenty of options, but, from reports, there's nothing that makes you feel great about that position right now.
Right.
A lot of times we like to go kind of position by position. And on offense, we know what we got in Bryce Young. He's the first returning Heisman player since Lamar Jackson, so it's been a couple years since we've seen that. There's 12 returning starters, obviously, including him, which is the most Bama's had since 2013. We know what Bryce can do. He broke a couple records that were set by Mac Jones the year before last year. What about the other two guys at quarterback behind him, just in case they need to have extended playing time? You think Bama could get through their schedule, 11-1, 10-2, if they had to resort to another quarterback? Like, how good are those guys?
Oddly enough, yeah. I would say probably with Jalen Milroe, with Ty Simpson. I mean, he's a true freshman, a lot of talent. But, you don't want to make that assumption without having ever really seen him play in live game situations. Saw him in A-Day and did some pretty good things, but that's a much different environment. But with Jalen Milroe, absolutely. He brings a lot more, Bryce Young is a dual threat player, but he doesn't like to utilize it very much, only when he has to. A guy like Jalen Milroe, he can sling the football around, but he's learned to kind of have more command in the pocket. And I think that's where Alabama has really been impressed with his improvement and his growth during the offseason. But when you look at his ability to run the football, it's not quite Jalen Hurts-esque necessarily, but he's more of a power runner. He has a lot of speed. So I think that he can threaten defenses in that way. And when you've got a young guy, and he still is relatively young, I think having that dual threat ability and being able to rely on your legs in certain situations, I think would be beneficial. If Jalen Milroe was behind last year's offensive line, I wouldn't feel nearly as good about it. But I do think that unit takes a big step forward. And if it does, then even going to a backup quarterback like Milroe, I would feel pretty good about their chances of being able to win football games, because I don't think people quite realize he's a heck of a talent and he's going to be a great player. He just, he's got the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, in front of him.
Yeah, that's fair. I think so. You said you're not as concerned by the offensive line as I am, which I think is a very fair statement. The other thing,
you're a stressor.
I'm a big stressor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing that I've been stressed about is injuries in the preseason going through the team. Obviously, you lose JoJo Earl from 6 to 8 weeks. Who is it? Like, we saw Treyshawn Holden. I think this is a much different question maybe a week ago or even interview, because I've been saying all offseason, I think that the guy that's going to step up isn't even the kid from Louisville. It isn't Burton or anything like that coming in. I think it's a guy from this recruiting class 2 cycles ago, where you have a bunch of these top 50 receivers, top 100 guys. Who is the guy that maybe on top of Holden that steps up and kind of takes over in this receiver class?
I think it's kind of the same situation as corner and offensive line. Like, you haven't looked at any of these quote unquote weaknesses or question marks for Alabama and say, we have no idea who are going to be the guys that step up, and they have no options. It's been, we don't know who the guys are going to step up are, but they have options. It's just a matter of establishing who those guys are. And they have plenty of receivers that could step up and do a pretty good job, I think. Ja'Cory Brooks in some ways kind of proved to be Mr. Clutch last year in some big crucial moments, but he also faltered a little bit as a true freshman in the national title game. Year older, year more mature. I think he learns from that much in the same way that, Kyrie Jackson and Kool-Aid McKinstry do, at corner. But that's a guy more of a big-bodied style of receiver, can win vertically, not really through speed, but just athleticism. He's a bigger body guy. He's good in contested catch situations. So I think that he would certainly be a guy that I would look out for. JoJo Earl, when he does come back, I think is going to be a very good player. I think Alabama was very excited about where he was trending. But, Treyshawn Holden is the one that was a little bit surprising. I think all of us going in, when you look, I mean, I knew he would be in the mix, but I was more so viewing him as a wide receiver 4 or 5. And I still have yet to see him with my own eyes. I'm typically one of those people, I'll buy into the hype a little bit, but I've got to see it myself to believe it. And so I know that he's got a lot of chemistry with Bryce Young. I mean, if you look back, who's been the one constant from the time that Bryce Young has been a starter at Alabama? You've had Ja'Cory Brooks miss the spring. You've had all those receivers last year who went on to the NFL. Right. You've had JoJo Earl miss time in fall camp. You've had Cameron Latou, your pass catching tight end. He's missed time in fall camp. You've had guys transfer, Javon Baker, Ajayi Hall. The one constant has been Treyshawn Holden. Right. And he had a very good relationship, and he already kind of had some established chemistry with Bryce Young coming in, just based off of the fact that they were in the same recruiting class and went through that circuit and stuff, all those, pre-camp, stuff, whatever you want to call it, right, prior to arriving at Alabama. And so I think they already had established a relationship. It hadn't really come to fruition on the field necessarily. But, I think that that's really going to be beneficial for both players. You already got that comfortability factor. And Nick Saban talked about after the first scrimmage, we've got to get our quarterbacks on the same page with the guys that he's going to be throwing the football to on Saturdays. And they made a ton of progress, from the first scrimmage to the second scrimmage in that area. And it showed during the second scrimmage. But, Treyshawn Holden, I think that gives him a huge advantage right now. Jermaine Burton, obviously, is the guy who's been the most consistent. I don't even really think I have to mention him too much. We all know he's going to be up there, probably be the number 1 receiver. Right. But then Kobe Prentice, the true freshman, he's done a great job of stepping up in the slot. And so that's another guy that I would kind of look out for as well. I think he can play inside or out, slot, outside receiver, can win vertically, love the talent that he brings. Right. So I do think they got some options, man.
I like that.
Obviously at running back, Brian Robinson had a shoulder load last year. You had a couple injuries, Jason McClellan, Roydell Williams go down. Trey Sanders just hasn't lived up to the billing quite yet after that car accident that he had. But I don't think you could have brought in a better back, especially considering Robinson had 35 catches last year, which is more than any of the returning receivers have on the team outside of Latou. I think Gibbs, I've seen it. I actually, watching him at Tech, and I've seen people say it, like he reminds me of Dalvin Cook a lot, just his utilization out of the backfield, catching the ball. Are they going to center the offense around him, do you think? Or is he going to be a Heisman candidate? Because I think he could be.
I think the amount of attention that Bryce Young is going to command, you kind of, defenses are going to have a very hard time focusing on both players. Mm-hmm. Because, a guy like Kenyon Drake, at least at Alabama, it actually turned out to be a pretty good runner in the NFL there for a couple of years, but he was known more as a pass catching guy. And Jamir Gibbs is so dynamic in that area that I think that, teams are going to focus on that, but him as a runner and his ability, to be that home run hitter, whether it be outside zone stretches, whether, I think he could bang between the tackles a little bit. He's very physical, for a guy who's 5'11", 200 pounds, he plays a lot bigger than his size would indicate. And he does not shy away from contact. And I think that just between his, his entire skill set and how dynamic he is, it's really going to provide Alabama with a huge asset, and it's going to be a huge problem for opposing defenses. And so I do think that he could, very well get into that Heisman conversation. I just don't know, our guys going to kind of cannibalize each other a little bit. That's the big question mark. With Will Anderson and Bryce Young, you start throwing Jamir Gibbs in there as well. I mean, we saw back in 2020, Alabama had Devontae Smith, Najee Harris, and Mac Jones all finish in the top 5. So I'm not saying that it can't happen, but Bryce Young, I think we need to take a little bit of a step back for Jamir Gibbs to kind of take reins of the offense and be viewed as that guy, even though he's a very exciting player. And when he makes plays, people are going to notice. This isn't a Brian Robinson where, you blink twice and the guy's rush for 150 yards. You're going to see every yard that he gets, and it's going to be exciting and fun to watch.
Right.
And so it's just a much different approach. But the running back group as a whole, man, really, hearing good things about the way Jace McClellan's progressing. Nick Saban talked about that, yesterday. Roydell Williams has added a lot of, muscle. I feel really good about their running backs going into this season.
I'm going to have to stop shit talking people named Jace.
Have you had problems with Jaces in the past?
Mainly just philosophically with just the name itself. Yeah.
To be fair, I've had a lot bigger problems with Chris's than Jace's in my life, in my experience.
Fuck you, Clint. I don't mean
it's a numbers game, though. There's a lot more Chris's than Jace's.
That is fair.
Really,
you're top 3 Chris's I know.
That's thank God. If I wasn't top 3 Chris's, Clint, that'd be a big problem.
I mean, I know a lot of Chris's.
If my name
I know
was
some
Steven,
good ones too. So that's high praise. Say what?
Well, if my name was Steven, where would I rank in your top 5?
Well,
so you're automatically assuming top 5, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I know some good Stevens too. Know a lot better Stevens than I do Chris's. So that automatically, vaults you to at least. I mean, you might not crack top 5 in that scenario. You're lucky you're named Chris, I guess is my point.
Okay, I appreciate that. That's good. Yeah. We got Georgia fans in the comments that are talking shit already. Said please, there's no E at the end of please, try and run the ball versus us, please. So and this thing too, this is a perfect transition, and I know you don't want to be here all night, so we'll try to get you out of here in like the next 10, 15. But going through the schedule, Georgia fans may not know this, but Georgia doesn't play Alabama this year. Lucky for them, because they've only had one win, I think, in the last 15 calendar years against Alabama. You look at this schedule, what is a game where you think that this could catapult Bama into like getting on like a little bit of a roll, which I know kind of sounds stupid because they're on one of those, it seems like every year, or could be like the beginning of a, I don't know, a little bit of a downturn. It could kind of like be a catalyst into like a 2 to 3 loss season.
I mean, I'm not touching the 2 or 3 loss season. And granted, it can happen. Certainly, it's just historically speaking, it's a lot more likely that doesn't happen than it does. But I would say there's a 4-game stretch right there in the middle of the season. You've got that month of September where you've got Utah State, you got Texas, you got Louisiana Monroe, and you got Vanderbilt. And then after that is where things really start to get, a little questionable because you got to go on the road and play Arkansas. I think it's going to be a very physically fought football game. Then you have the emotional factor of the Texas A&M game, even though it is at home, a lot of emotion involved there. And then you follow that up the very next week by having to go to Knoxville to play a very tough Josh Heupel offense with, Hendon Hooker and Cedric Tillman. And, they've got some pieces offensively, and I don't think Alabama's going to have a problem scoring on Tennessee, but I could see that turning into a shootout. And if things kind of get out of hand, and granted, you look at Alabama's defense and you say, wait a minute, how in the world is it going to turn into a shootout? In today's college football, it always feels like you're going to have that one game that gets away from you. And, for Georgia's historically good defense last year, it was the SEC championship. And of course, there was some, defensive touchdowns and things that added to the final score. But I could kind of see Tennessee and Alabama getting into a back and forth if Tennessee's offense is what we think that it's going to be, which we still don't know, but
right.
Signs are promising. But then if you get past that game, the very next week, you've got to welcome Mississippi State and Mike Leach's offense. And I could see that after, a physically fought game against Arkansas, the emotional factor, and another physically fought game against A&M, then the Josh Heupel offense on the road, and then you got Mike Leach's offense. I mean, it's not quite the passing equivalent of a triple option offense, but it's so unorthodox that it's not something you're going to see often. So it's kind of tough to prepare for. And now Mississippi State's heading into year 3 under Mike Leach.
Right.
This is kind of the time where things really start to click with his teams. I could see that being a pretty tough stretch for Alabama.
I will say this too. I will say this too. I think one of the things that Pete Golding has done really, really, really well against what do you call it? Against Mike Leach offenses since he's been there. Like especially last year, you look at some of the numbers they put up. But I will say this: that A&M to Tennessee transition and the Arkansas A&M to Tennessee transition specifically, you know what that reminds me of is the 2012 LSU game in Death Valley, followed by Johnny Manziel and A&M. I'm not saying that Tennessee is anywhere close to that, but I'm saying that you have this very, very tough physical matchup on the road against LSU, even though I know we're home against A&M. But you have to get up emotionally for that game. You have to come back with Yeldon to make a man miss moment, and then you got to go play Johnny Manziel. And it's like, fuck. Like you kind of go into this, you go down 21-0 in the first quarter, which, again, I'm not comparing Manziel to Hendon Hooker or that offense, but I will say that type of offense with Heupel, because you know how they are on script, especially early on in those games, that's something that kind of worries me. So, Tyler, let's give him one question more apiece and then get him out of here so he can go drink his juicy juice.
So do you think – I actually think I'm looking at that November 12th matchup. For everything that LSU – I think Chris may have picked LSU last in the West, if I'm not mistaken. And they've got a lot of talent on that roster still. And it's at LSU, probably what I would guess would be a night game. And then you go immediately the next week on the road at Ole Miss with them coming off a bye. That one is – what do you think is like the biggest road bump to going undefeated on the schedule?
Road bump.
I would say, like I said, I've told people, I do think Alabama goes 11-1. I just can't tell you exactly where they're going to slip up. To me, if I were to guess, and it is a pure guess, I mean, it's just as likely that Alabama goes on the road and they beat Tennessee by 40 points. And then everybody comes at me and hops in my mentions like, you idiot. But I'm not saying that can certainly happen. But if I had to pick a game on the schedule right now, it would be at Tennessee. You've gone, 15 years without beating them. Every year that you go, it gets that much more difficult. And if Tennessee starts feeling like they have a chance, if you don't put that away early and you let that crowd get involved in the emotional side for them, that what can happen if we do finally beat Alabama and they can do it at home, I mean, that place will get rocking really quick and it can become a very hostile, rough environment. But if it's not Tennessee, I mean, I could see, Arkansas, A&M, Mississippi, all those games are tough. But I think LSU could be extremely difficult because, if you look historically, I mean, Alabama, and someone pointed this out recently, and they're 100% correct. A lot of your losses that Alabama has suffered, you've gotten top wide receiver play. And the fact that you're going to Baton Rouge to play LSU and they've got some of the best receivers in the country, that in Alabama right now, that's probably the biggest uncertainty on the roster is cornerback. If they haven't gotten that stuff figured out by November 5th, I could see that getting a little bit rocky because I think that they have a quarterback in Jaden Daniels or, Nussmeier if it ends up being him. I'm not overly impressed with either. I don't think that either one of them are going to be, fantastic. But with Jaden Daniels' legs in particular, on top of having that dynamic receiver play, I could see that kind of becoming an issue combination. But then you talk about Ole Miss the very next week. I got to see it with Ole Miss. I'm having a hard time. Part of me at the beginning thought Auburn, I was definitely going to pick them to finish 7th in the West. And then, Mississippi State's the one that a lot of people are picking. And I can't say that I completely disagree, mostly because of their schedule. But, I could see them. But then Ole Miss, if the transfer stuff doesn't hit like it needs to, especially at the quarterback position, things can get really ugly for Lane Kiffin really quick. And I'll have to see. Now, hopefully by November 12th, maybe they've gotten things figured out and Lane Kiffin's got something rolling. Zach Evans, I think, is going to be one of the best running backs in the country. So at least they'll be able to rely on that. They got a good offensive line, got a couple of good weapons. So we'll just have to see how things are transitioning with those transfers. But I could see Ole Miss being a problem too if everything aligns like it should.
Right.
All right. Last question. Well, I have one real question, and I got a yes or no from you. Yes or no. That's it. That's all I want to hear.
Those
Is
are
Eli
never
Ricks
good.
starting or not?
Huh?
Is Eli Ricks starting or not?
No. I don't think so. And you shouldn't be concerned with that. What people's got to understand is that, this is what's happening. Alabama has had such a strong hit rate. If you think back, I mean, Landon Dickerson, really things that started getting rolling with him. Immediate starter. Henry To'oTo'o, Jamison Williams, immediate starters, immediate impact players. This year, we're expecting that to be Jamir Gibbs. We're expecting that to be Jermaine Burton. Tyler Steen has kind of stepped up and he's become that guy at left tackle, or at least we think he's going to be that guy. The hit rate at as far as transfers are concerned has been so strong for Alabama that the guys who are not able to come in and immediately become that guy, it's like they're a bust. This was a huge mistake. And Eli Ricks is catching a lot of that. He's had a bad combination of what he was asked to do at LSU. They kind of, on that defense, it was a lot more, hey, go be a 5-star, go be a playmaker. And that suited him. He did that extremely well. At Alabama, there's a lot more to playing the cornerback position, and you're not going to get safety help over the top. And you've got new coaches, you've got new teammates. It's a new environment. It's a new system, like I said. Plus, it's new expectations. The demands of playing at Alabama are so much more than they were at LSU under Ed Orgeron. So I think he's transitioning as far as that is concerned. But on top of that, he's been banged up back in the spring. He got banged up this past week and had to miss the second scrimmage. And so you've got this combination of he needs to be on the field, continuing to get better and continuing to progress. And when you're banged up, you're not able to do that. So I think he's going to be a good player for Alabama. And I could see him being their number one corner by midway through the year. I wouldn't be shocked at all by that, but I don't think he's going to be that guy in week one. No.
Okay. All right. This is the final question. Okay. It was usually we're going to say like, what's the over under on the wins? You've already given that. So I'm going to give you a little pregame speech, and then I'm going to have you answer this, because this is the fucking thing, Clint. Okay. Make it a little bit loud. Listen, the dog's going to get pretty upset, but let me just say this. I've heard all off season. Heard about Georgia. I've heard about Coach Harsin, him coaching them boys up down there in Auburn, which, we love to see it. Heard about Tennessee, heard about Arkansas, heard about Ohio State, heard about all these people, all these different teams. But like I say, and I want everyone to hear me very clearly when I say this, like I say every single year, and I don't know what time we play Utah State. I think it's a 7:30 game. But in a week and a half, Clint, at 7:30 p.m., they're going to tee up that fucking football, and you got to go line up and you got to go play Alabama, okay? So how far does this fucking team go? I'm amped up.
How far does Alabama go?
Yeah.
You got to stone cold this?
Say it.
I mean, right now, the assumption has to be national title, because when you look at it, best coach in the country, best offensive player, best defensive player, both your coordinators are coming back. A lot of your question marks from last year, you take a step back at receiver. I certainly think that they do there a little bit, but the offensive line is what kept them from being able to do what they wanted to do and what Alabama is used to doing. And everybody blamed Bill O'Brien for that. And did he make some terrible decisions? I mean, in the Texas A&M game, throwing the football 3 times in a row down on the goal line, that's unforgivable in this state. But to be fair, we should have all taken that and said, what does he think about this offensive line that he feels like he has to throw the football 3 times down there near the goal line? And it's just the offensive line was so limiting. And the fact that I think it's going to take a big step forward, I feel really good about it. I think Eric Wolford, Nick Saban, anytime he's been asked about the offensive line, it has been, raving reviews, but he always finds a way to come back to Eric Wolford and doesn't even a lot of times mention him by name. Just He's like, the guy we got running stuff right now, I think the players are adopting his mentality, and we feel really good about, how their mentality has changed compared to last year. That speaks volumes. He's talked about the run game. He's a lot more confident in that. He thinks they're protecting, pass protecting a lot better. So, I mean, when you combine all that, who else can say all of that? Best player in college football, best offensive, defensive, both coordinators, best head coach. rest of the roster, there's no clear weaknesses. I think right now the assumption has to be a national title. And if they don't win one, this is a year where it's like, I totally get the expectations, and it will be a huge disappointment if they don't.
We're going to end with that, and I'll just say that I've coined the phrase horny for disrespect here in the offseason, and I think Clint's words right here, just horny for respect, guys. I'll just say it. I feel very happy right now.
I don't endorse that whatsoever, by the way.
A cigarette. This sounds great. Clint, tell everyone where they can find you. Dude, I can't say thank you enough for having you on here, man.
Yeah. And I'm glad we were finally able to do it.
What's that?
I'm glad we were finally able to do it, man. This was fun.
Yeah, man, we'll do it again in 2027 for sure. But tell everyone where they can find you, and we'll get at you soon, man.
Really, where can't you find me nowadays? I feel like I'm doing so much. At Clint R. Lamb on Twitter. You can go, BamaInsider.com. Got the Talk of Champions message boards going on over there. Great conversation about, Alabama football and college football in general. I'm on there all the time. I feel like I'm on there 24/7. So you can check me out there. And then just whatever you do, don't ask Chris for my number.
Because I will give it out for sure. All right, dude. We'll talk to you soon, man. We appreciate it. Enjoy your game.
Thanks, man.
See you guys. Appreciate y'all having me on.
All right, bye. All righty, man.
Big dick.
There you have it.
Coming through. Let's get into these week 0 bets. That was fun. Clint's the best, man.
So he fired you up there a little bit.
Or
did you fire yourself up? I
fired myself up a little bit. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. You guys know how I am. I wear everything on my sleeve anyway. But when I tell you that Clint, I've told him this, and this is going to be a little bit over dramatic, but I mean it. Like, Clint's face last year was like a sign for me that everything was going to be okay. And I know that sounds crazy, but when I got credentialed for that first game against Miami, the Bama Miami game, I remember going into the fucking press box, right? And I'm like, okay, you got this. I've driven by both former places I used to live. And at the time, it's not like now where things are like, seemingly going pretty well and I'm happy again and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, I was like, fuck, how am I going to do this? Like, I'm not going to make it through this. And I remember walking in, and I swear to God, the first thing I heard when I walked in the press box was some girl and some guy both telling their own stories about how they had just gotten engaged. And I was like, I'm going to fucking hurl myself out of this press box down below. And I turned the corner and I see Clint, and I was like, oh. And he's like such a good Southern, like, hey man, like it'll slap your shoulder. It'll probably sting a little bit when he does it. Just say, hey man, how you doing, man? How you doing? We sat there, we had a blast, man. It was a lot of fun. That's awesome. I am fired up because he's a lot more reasonable than I am. And you heard it here. You heard it here first.
All right. So we're going to be making our week 0 bets. We're going to track these throughout the year.
Yeah.
Not a lot of great on the schedule here. I think I've got
2.
I've got 4 bets.
Whoa.
Maybe 5. Let's
Okay.
see. Let's go with your first one. What is it?
Well, so I told you last week, my locks. Can I get into like my prop bet locks?
Okay.
Hendon Hooker over. 30,
I'm writing these down.
Yeah, write them down then. Hendon Hooker over 2,769 yards passing. He was under that last year.
2,769.
Yep, he only had 10 games where he was the starter. Every single Josh Heupel quarterback that he's had in his system in the last 6 years, that was like 4 of the 6 have gone over 3,300 yards. The only 2 that have gone under that are him and Milton McKenzie, who also only played 10 games. So I fully expect him to go over that number. They've averaged around 3,100 yards of passing in his offense. I think he'll skyrocket past that. So that's my lock. The other one is Bryce Young under 3,859 passing yards. He had 3,901. These are all regular season numbers, by the way. He had 3,901 last year. He had Jameson Williams. He had a first round. He had Mechie. He also did not have a running game. Alabama threw the ball more than they ran the ball in 6 games, in 6 of their 12 regular season games last year. It's the first time that ever happened under Saban. They had 4 games where they were held under 100 yards rushing. To put that in perspective, that happened 3 total times in the previous 10 years combined. I don't expect that to be a thing this year. I think they'll throw the ball a lot, but they won't throw it as much as they have in the past. All the numbers I just told you, even with all that, Bryce Young only passed that number by 42 total yards. So I expect that to go under that.
What's the number?
38.59.
38.59.
Third prop bet, Brock Bowers under 10.5 touchdown catches in the regular season. Here's why. Brock Bowers, best tight end in the country. Everyone knows that. Has 56 catches for 882 yards and 13 total touchdowns last year. In the regular season, keep in mind, he only had 10. Okay? He only had 10. But he had 25 more catches than any other player on the team last year. I don't expect that to be the case this year. He also is the only Georgia player in since 2009, so the last 12 years. I don't know why I'm out of breath, but I am.
So fired up about the Bama.
I'm so fired up. So Brock Bowers, he's the first Georgia player to have over 10 receiving touchdowns in a season since 2009. So he's the first one to do it in 12 years. Also, his 13 touchdowns are the most of any tight end in the country in the last 5 years. I think you'll just see a natural regression on that. And again, even with all that, he only had 10 in the regular season, so he didn't even pass 10.5 last year. Now he's got Eric Gilbert. Now he's also got a lot more depth at receiver and passing game than he had a year ago. I think he'll be under that number as well. My week 0 picks. I'm taking Nebraska minus 13.5 over Northwestern.
It's at 13 now.
I'm taking them to cover that.
It's at 12 now.
I'm still taking it. This is making me feel worse and worse.
I know. It's insane. I had him at 13.5 too, and I'm looking at Bovada right now. It's Nebraska minus 12. It's changed.
Here's the thing. With Nebraska going into Scott Frost year 5, whatever it is, it's time to put up or shut up. They're going to Ireland. You have got to come out and make a statement. What he has to do more than anything, he has to win games that he's supposed to win. They went 3-9 last year. They were the best, quote unquote, best 9-loss team in the history of college football, which is fucking pathetic. But when you have 9 losses by single digit or less, in a year like this, he's got to get to 7 wins. He's got to get to a bowl game. He's got to show the boosters why he needs to come back for another year. He's got to win this game, and I think he's got to prove a point. So I think Nebraska wins big. This is a game they won last year, 56-7.
That was going to be my point. They had dominated last year and totally dominated in the trenches.
Right.
Nebraska brings in a ton of transfers, including Casey Thompson at QB.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, this is Frost. He has to win this. They follow this up with 4 straight home games.
Right.
So if they could win this one, then they've got all these games at home. You could pretty much save your job. Yeah. That is one of my picks as well. Love that.
I will also say that this is going to be the first of many, many weeks this year where we quote my favorite German dungeon porn band of all time. Remember the song Du Hast Me?
Yeah, Du Hast.
Du Frost me, baby. Du Frost. Du Frost me. All year long, baby. All year long. I love it. Here's the other one. Now, I'm going to give you some numbers, and none of this is going to add up. But I told you this last week. Teams that go to play a regular season game on the road, a season opener at Hawaii, are 1-7 against the spread in their last 8 games out there. Vandy, who's god awful, is a 6.5-point favorite. We are going to take Vandy to cover the 6.
I think we're getting even better odds now.
Is it down to
8.5 Vandy?
Oh, I like it. I'm still taking it.
Love it. Yeah, you have. Are you going against it, right?
What's that?
You're going against it? You're going Hawaii plus 8.5?
Oh boy. No, I'm taking Vandy. Hold on one second.
Vandy minus 8.5?
I'm taking Vandy. First off, I'm taking Vandy minus 6.5. Let's just say I got it early, okay?
Wow. Okay.
Because I did. Anyway, I'm taking the 6.5. There's no part of me that says that they should win this game or cover the spread, except for the fact that S&P Plus rankings came out, and Hawaii is fucking awful. I mean, awful. All right, you give your picks, and then I want to give everyone a good send-off before we go.
All right. I'm also taking Nebraska minus. We get it at 12. I'm also going to take the under in that game, under 50.5. I think both of these teams. You got a brand new QB. You're working with a lot of new parts. I'm going to give you the Vandy minus 6.5.
Thank you. Yeah, you will.
Taking Florida State minus 35.5 against 2K. The fact that The fact that it's only minus 35.5 against Duquesne is very sad that there's actually a line out there. They need to come out and score as many points as possible in front of a home crowd. It's been since 2016 since we've won a game and started 1-0. New Mexico State plus 8.5. I've read that Nevada might be one of the worst teams in the country this year. They just lost their one good player. So I'll take some points for New Mexico State. And then I'll go on the other side of you, but you got to give me the plus 8.5 for Hawaii because I don't think Vandy can cover a 2-score.
Wow. Very tight window for us to make money. All right, is that it?
That's it.
All right, let me say something to everybody.
We'll track this.
Listening. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart, okay? I'm trying to get emotional, but I probably will.
Okay.
On Saturday morning, we're going to wake up. It's going to be 8:55. Those of you with kids, you'll have been up for hours already. Just fucking miserable, all right? Questioning all your life choices. But at 8:55, your boy's going to get out of bed. He's going to turn on the TV. And for the first time in almost 9 fucking months, a baby's been cooking for how long it's been since the last time we've heard this, okay? 2 of the worst country singers of all time, Big and Rich, which they are neither of those things, are going to come on stage. Do you remember that time that, by the way, that Rich cut his Nike signs off of his socks?
No.
He got so upset about something they were doing politically. He cut all the Nike stuff off his socks like he couldn't just get his fucking new socks. Anyway, here's the deal. You're going to wake up. You're going to turn on ESPN. And for the first time in almost 9 months, we're going to hear the sweet fucking sounds of Big and Rich. And we're going to feel whole again. And college football season will be back. And for the first time in 9 months, we will wake up and from noon to fucking 1 a.m., we will just be entrenched in college football, the greatest sport on earth. So I just want to say congrats to everybody. Congrats to Tyler. Also want to say thank you to everybody. And I want to say thank you to Tyler. Thank you to Dan for all the hard work this offseason. We
made it.
Because we finally fucking made it. And now we get to be whole people again. And man, I know that I'm going to wake up. I'm going to start crying, not uncontrollably. I'm going to start crying as soon as I hear those beautiful, sweet words. We're coming in to your city. And Liz is going to look at me like, are you fucking crying over a Big and Rich song? I'm like, it's just so beautiful. And it will be so beautiful. And I'm just so happy for all of us. We're fucking back, man. We are fucking back.
Let's go. All right. Well, week 0, it'll be a little muted after we get kicked off. And then we realize we're watching Nevada and New Mexico State. Desperately hoping New Mexico State covers plus 8.5. This is why we love the sport. I'm excited. We'll be back with you guys after the weekend is over to recap what should be an exhilarating week 0. And then finally, next week, midweek, don't know if it's going to be Wednesday or Thursday, one of the two, we are going to preview week 1.
Yeah.
We got a ton of big matchups. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait to see you guys there. 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Like and subscribe on YouTube. For Chris, I'm Tyler. We'll see you guys next week.